Welcome back, DIY Squad. The last few videos, we've been transforming what I believe to kind of be a boring white kitchen and adding a little more life to the mix. To really seal the deal and make this look like a custom-built kitchen, we must do one last thing. Install under cabinet lighting. I know there are many ways to add lighting under a cabinet, like those stick-on lights that you could backhand and turn on. They take C batteries and probably die in a week. My solution, I'm going to put in hardwired LED light strips with a dimming wall switch. To get started on something like this, you basically need 5 things. LED lights, or strip lights as some people like to call them, an LED driver, a switch, your wiring, and you're going to need connectors. So this is my plan on tackling this. Of course we're adding lights under the cabinet, but I'm also adding accent lighting to the top of the cabinets as well. I figure I'm going to hide the transformer on the top of the cabinet to the left. From the driver, I will wire the first row of LEDs on top of that cabinet. A second wire will feed down to power the lights under the cabinet. I will then run a wire from the end of the LED strip, daisy chain it across so that I could power the next LED strip under the other cabinet. As for the switch, I'm going to place it on the sidewall where it makes sense to me. Seems simple, right? Well, when I'm doing these kinds of projects, I always ask myself, what can I do to elevate this to the next level to really give it a wow factor? Here's my wow factor. I'm going to run an additional line from the transformer, down the wall and into my unfinished basement. I'm then going to run it under my floor, come up under the island, and light up the front to really show off the paneling we installed in a previous video. If you haven't seen that video and want to know how to upgrade your island, you can find it by clicking the link at the top. But that's not all. That same wire I ran into the basement, I'm also splitting to go to the cabinet above my refrigerator. Before we get on to the install, I want to discuss how to find the correct lights and the light driver for your project. Now ultimately, does size really matter? When it comes to the driver, yes, this will involve a little bit of math. Whatever strip lights you buy, you will need to know how many watts per foot your lights require. So if you have 10 feet of strip lights and each foot needs 3 watts, you take your 3 watts times your 10 feet and you end up with a minimum of 30 watts. How does it all translate to you doing yours? You could do it like I did by taking pictures and drawing it out, figuring out the best way to configure your setup, or you could do it the easy way. If you go to inspiredled.com, the company offers a service where you submit a photo of the area and an expert will build your design free of charge. Obviously, they would want you to purchase all the supplies from them. Full disclosure, I am receiving nothing from them for this. They have no idea I'm even doing this video. They offered a great product and the customer service was amazing, so I'm just mentioning them. Now that I've talked about how I'm doing this and what we're using to do the install, let's get going. The first thing that needs to be completed is running all of your wire. I'm removing the 2 wall cabinets so I can access the wall behind them. I'm setting up a ledger board that's snug to the bottom of the cabinets. This way, when I go to put them back up, I can set them on top of the board and they land exactly where they were before. If you remember, we are daisy chaining all of these LED lights together. So what I need is a line that comes from the under cabinet light to feed the power to the top. I check for blocking in the wall that will stop me from running the wire and cut out the drywall behind the cabinet where the blocking is located. I then punch a hole about a ½ inch above the cabinet where the wire will come out of the wall. I then drill a hole through the blocking to run my wire through it. At the bottom, I punch another hole where the wire will connect to the lighting under the cabinet. Once the wire is run between the 2 points, I replace the drywall, throw on some drywall compound, and call it good. I could probably skip this step entirely, but oh well. From there, I replace the cabinet. I drill a hole under the cabinet small enough for the wire to slip through so that when I install the lighting, it will hide this hole. Now I need to be able to jump from the right cabinet to the left cabinet. Just like before, I find the studs, cut out the drywall, drill the hole, run the wire, and then cover it all back up. This too, I'm not going to be too concerned with patching perfectly because we're putting a backsplash over this. The backsplash video is already released, so if you haven't seen that, you can watch that by clicking the link above as well. Now moving on, to run wire to the island and the other set of cabinets, I go behind the wall in this dead space behind the cabinet and punch through the floor into the basement. Next to the other set of cabinets is also some hidden dead space that I can run my wire to as well. Ultimately, you just have to get kind of creative to find ways to run all your wire to the locations that you need. So going back into our kitchen, the last thing we need to run wire for is the light switch. There's a light switch on the other side of the wall for the pantry light, so we are going to piggyback off that to supply power to our driver. All right, so this is the switch that's inside of our pantry. So we basically have a hot wire that comes up to the wall here, goes into the switch, and then continues up. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna splice right into that since that box is just right there. And then you just install the switch per the instructions. Once the switch is all wired up, I move to the top of the cabinet to wire in the driver. I figured this is the lifeline of the whole system, I might as well start with it first. Your driver is going to have two sections built into it. One side will have your 115 volt wires going in, and the other will have your 12 or 24 volt going out. Now that I've powered the driver with the line from the light switch, I start connecting the lines that will power the LED lights. And once you cram in all your wire connectors into that huge space that they give you, just go ahead and attach your top plate. When the LED lights I ordered came in, the company already attached the connectors to the ends. All I had to do was place the correct wire into each port and clamp them down. For now, I temporarily tape this down just in case I have to move anything or make changes as I finish up this project. I have some aluminum track on order that these will all go in, which will make it look so much more clean. Alright, let's test this out. 3, 2, 1. Moving over to the kitchen island, I'm going to show you how I install the lighting here. If you're installing the aluminum track and there are end caps, make sure you put those on before connecting your LED lights. Just like I did on the cabinet, I hook them up and test them before doing any final install. You can see me struggling here a little bit, so let me warn you. These connectors will severely test your patience. If they are not connected just right, they will fail on you. Real quick, before we finish this up, let's talk about aluminum rails. Here on my awesome lifetime picnic table workbench, I've got two different styles of rails. The first one is just a simple U-shaped aluminum rail. Looking from the side, you can see that there is nothing real fancy to this, and it's also the style that I'm using on this project. The other rail I have here I'm using for a future project and is usually called a collar-shaped rail. You can see from the side that it has a lip, so you can inset these rails into a countertop, under shelves, basically wherever you need it where you don't want to see the side of the rail. This rail is also set deeper. This allows a little more space for the LEDs to diffuse so you can't see each individual LED. Installing these can be difficult. Some come with little clips that you can use to attach them, but I actually find that harder to do. On these, I just drill small holes through the rail on each end and use a flathead screw to hold them in place. Then you just remove the double-sided tape on the strip lights and secure them inside. Most of the rails I could find online all come with a cover. These covers are what will really help in diffusing the light, so make sure you're reading the descriptions thoroughly. These guys are simple to install and they just snap in place. So if you're on Amazon or any of those other places looking for rails, make sure you do a little research and understand what size rail you're getting, how deep it is, how well it's going to diffuse the light so that you don't see the individual LED lights. On under cabinet lighting, they're hidden underneath the cabinet, and so you don't actually see the individual LEDs. Now, if the LED rails or the LED lights were going to be fully visible, you might want to consider getting something with a really good diffusing cover on it. I then start installing the aluminum track that the lights will rest in. Once the tracks are installed, I just pull the double-sided tape from the LED lights and stick them to the track. These tracks have a cover that you snap on which will help diffuse the light. Before we move on, let's talk a little bit about strip lights or tape lights. The little yellow square is the individual LED that's on this specific strip. You will also see about every 5 to 10 inches an area where you can cut the strip to shorten them. There's usually a little picture of scissors, but if there isn't, the 2 gobs of solder should be your landmark. Do not cut anywhere else or your lights will not work. When you are connecting your strip lights, make sure that you are keeping this consistent. I chose red to be my positive and white to be my negative. If you cross those and hook them up on the wrong side, this will not work. After I installed the rails, I installed these on here. All I did is I took it to my table saw and I actually just notched out this piece so it sits flush up against this. It gives it a nice clean look, and then that way I didn't have to put a break in my rails or the lights. This being my first time doing this, I think they turned out great. They really make the kitchen pop and provide necessary lighting when preparing meals and working next to the stove. If you found this video useful and you want to support this channel so I can keep bringing you new content, please like and subscribe down below. I'm Josh with DIY Declassified, and I will see you on the next project.